Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the right time. My name is Bomani Jones. We are sitting here on a lovely Thursday. It is the first day of the NFL draft, which is always a bit of a dilemma for me because I work at a company that made the NFL draft, but I don't really enjoy the NFL draft that much. But you enjoy the NFL draft, so who would I like to talk about the NFL draft with? We have from EDSBS.com and SBNation.com, the best college football writer in America. His name is Spencer Hall. Now, Spencer, this is kind of like the bridge between the college football that you love and the NFL that you find boring.
It is. And it's also really interesting because it's always interesting when somebody looks at something that you've been looking at for a long time and then has a completely different opinion. That happens a lot when you're looking at the transition from college to pro. For instance, I don't know, coolest guy I watched for the last 2 years was Lamar Jackson. I assumed he was immortal. I assumed that he'd be a success at pretty much anything he did. Evidently, that's not the case if you ask NFL scouts.
Well, part of the fun of that, like we could get to Lamar Jackson, but I mean, we start with quarterbacks here, right? We're starting to hear now at the time of this recording that Baker Mayfield, there's a good chance that he will be the number one overall pick, which is interesting because he is one of those great type of players, but you know, a little bit diminutive. Did you think that we'd reach a point where people were talking about him as the number one pick?
No, because I usually thought people fall into the USC trap. And if you don't know what I mean by the USC trap, I would say that there's a big, tall, how shall we put this, stereotypically quarterback-looking quarterback.
Yes.
Out of USC. A drop-back pro-style quarterback, if you will, in Sam Darnold. And I thought everybody would fall into that because people have old habits. People like to fall into the same kind of decisions, and drafting a big old lummox out of USC who can throw the ball real hard seems like an obvious thing. But credit to the NFL, we've evolved into newer, weirder stereotypes. So I'm not entirely surprised by that, particularly because the NFL's gone to a lot of what you see at the college level, which is pass first, run later, spread them out, and hope your quarterback can do a little bit with his legs.
Well, it's interesting to me, like when people finally decide and they're like, you know what, this is actually the way that the football game is being played, so we'll go along with that. And it's a win for Baker Mayfield because in some different years, I like Baker Mayfield being a jerk to an extent, but man, Baker Mayfield's a jerk, bro. It's been one for a long time.
Yeah, no, you don't. You're drafting a jerk. You should know that. He's fond of occasionally grabbing the part of his body you're not supposed to grab on television, sometimes at his opponents, right? He's a flag planter. He enjoys claiming territory. He's kind of a throwback like that, like a Vasco da Gama, just taking a flag and putting it wherever he wants to claim it. You're not going to be able to do that in the NFL. It's not going to happen for a lot of reasons. Most notably your boss, because they don't want it to be that interesting. NFL wants things to be this interesting, not that interesting. You're never allowed to be bigger than the helmet.
He's also bringing his jerk dad along with him.
Oh, listen, we can have this entire conversation about jerk dads and amazing jerk dads of quarterbacks, because quarterback is now, I think Bruce Feldman called it the new violin.
Yes.
Right? It's a skill that you learn. You don't see a lot of these people this high up on draft boards without a number of things behind them, a substantial amount of money, time, effort, dedication, and jerk dad or jerk mom pushing. Don't ignore the jerk mom here, by the way. Jerk mom is an important part of the equation as well.
Well, Lamar Jackson I don't know if he has jerk mom because no one ever actually gets to talk to her. He has mom that people think is jerk, though.
Oh, I like that in this process, when you read all the draft evaluations and everything, even NFL scouts are like, his family's fine. I'm not going to talk about his family. Which leads me to believe that this is the kind of mother who looks at you once and the daggers fly out of her eyes and strike you directly in the heart exactly where she wants them to, and then you don't talk about it anymore. Because even the NFL scouts, who ask some of the most inappropriate questions on the planet, are like, yeah, he's cool. Let's not talk about her.
Well, his mom came with the, hey, man, he's going to play quarterback, period. And apparently has been on this kick since he was like 9 years old. Like, I'm totally fascinated by his mother just because she made a call very early that honestly a lot of dads would not have necessarily had the heart to keep going with.
Yeah, because, I think at one point she assumed, I have to make this decision for him. That's how, one, significant the opposition is. And two, that's how talented he is. Do you think there are other things that Lamar Jackson wanted to try at one point that his mom was like, nah, no, it's not happening, right? Like, at one point did Lamar Jackson go, I think I got a real passion for rugby sevens. I really want to do that, Mom. Can we move to New Zealand and do that? And she's like, it's funny, eat your breakfast now.
She also managed to quarter Bobby Petrino into the truth, which I think is a pretty amazing trick.
Yeah. I mean, not that Bobby Petrino is that hard to back into a corner. It's just hard to keep him from escaping from it, right? Maybe, in the dark of night when no one's looking. Bobby Petrino can do that, right? So credit to her. She kept Bobby Petrino from escaping or crashing out of a situation. That's completely random verbiage. I'm not choosing the words intentionally. Nope, not for any reason.
But she also had all the leverage, right? Because at that point, Bobby Petrino could not get away with another lie.
No, he could not get away with another lie. And also, look at it this way. We've never really talked enough about the Bobby Petrino as brilliant pro coordinator thing. I don't think that's in question, that he's a very good offensive coordinator. But when we start talking about a groomer of quarterbacks, I think that's mostly random, right? I think that most people really ignore the random and circumstantial when they evaluate how a quarterback pans out, right? Like, oh, well, that coach never really puts guys in the pros, right? I prefer to get really specific, like Jimbo Fisher gets them paid, right? We know Jimbo Fisher will get you paid as a pro quarterback. Now, will you be a successful pro quarterback? I'm going to go back to the original statement. Jimbo will get you paid. After that, who knows? That's up to fortune and fate. You know what? Jimbo Fisher doesn't have their numbers. But you know who does have? Scouts, agents. And he's got numbers he can put on the board, right? A lot of people thrown into the NFL draft and given very positive evaluations and large signing bonuses. Now, with Petrino, I don't know if we talk enough about the case of, well, who has he really put into the league who's been really successful? You want to go over that list real quick? It's not real long.
I would say not only is it not real long, I think we already went through it.
Yeah, something that I think he needs at this point, especially in recruiting, right? Because he's at Louisville, and he's got a great reputation. It's still not the kind of place where if I go after a 5-star, it's a lock. That's not going to happen. So there are a lot of people who really need Lamar Jackson to succeed. Bobby Petrino, I think, is one of them. Not that he needs like Lamar Jackson to be an all-pro instantly, Hall of Famer, obvious, first rounder. No, he just needs Lamar Jackson to be successful because that resume, it's a lot thinner than Lamar Jackson's in this department.
Well, what do we call it successful, though, right? Because I think I was talking about this, I think the dude from Mike, whatever his name is, I think it's Farrell at Rivals, was like, sorry, but Lamar Jackson is not going to be a successful quarterback. I'm like, it's not really a hot take because ain't that many quarterbacks that are actually successful. Like, if you come up short of winning a Super Bowl, I don't know where the gap is between star quarterback and merely successful quarterback. Like, is that the Alex Smith level?
Yeah, like, okay, Phillip Rivers, like, we say his name with kind of a smile because it's very hard to not look at Phillip Rivers and think, oh, that guy blew a game, right? Phillip Rivers is a phenomenally successful quarterback. Phenomenally. So much of what we define as success as a quarterback is one, the standard's way too high because you say, oh, well, he won a Super Bowl. That is a deeply flimsy, reason to call a quarterback successful, right? Especially in a team game where you have at least 11 guys who determine your fate, if not 22 when you count the defense, right? That's ridiculous. Two, I think that we take long careers where people do really well and perform at a high level for a really long time. I think we kind of take those for granted, right? You're Phillip Rivers, right? I'm trying to think of another quarterback who sort of fits that mold. Like, for me, Tyrod Taylor's been really successful in some really, really bad spots. And for his reward, he has been sent to Cleveland?
Yes, he has.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. A team we'll be talking about, again, for entirely different reasons, right? But Tyrod Taylor, for somebody who, if you just looked at a quarterback like any other job, right? If you look at it like any other job, this is a job that requires 3 years post-grad training. That's the way we should look at it, right? This should be minimum 3 years post-grad training, right? Maybe a professional degree of some sort, right? Understudying under somebody. You got to think of it way more like, neurobiology, right? Or neurosurgery than you do any other position on the field, just because of the amount of information you have to process. So in terms of success, I don't think you can say a quarterback's successful or a success or a failure, or at the very least a failure, until 3 or 4 years out, right? But instead, we have to, you have to have an opinion on it now and instantly.
Well, you remember there was a time where you draft a quarterback, and even though he was making giant money, you'd sit him on the oak, right? Like Steve McNair was basically on the oak for 2 years before he wound up being a starter. Like Carson Palmer came out spent a full year on the bench behind, of all people, John Kitna before they put him in the following year. Like, it's wild. The salaries have gotten lower for quarterbacks that you take earlier, but that has incentivized teams to play them maybe before they should play. Yeah, and for reasons that I think might not have a lot to do with their money, throwing them in early. Because, by the way, isn't it weird that Jeff Fisher, who we widely lambasted for ruining Vince Young and other quarterbacks' careers and mismanaging them, and had that kind of care for a quarterback, right? Like, is that just because he was traditional and that okay, well, we'll wait on McNair, we'll put him back there, we'll be patient, right? It's odd that like he was on both sides of that in his career with a quarterback. Yeah, like I wonder if he had gotten Vince in 1995, like he got McNair, Vince probably sits a couple years. Yeah, and probably learns a little bit more and chills out. Like I'm all in favor of that generally, professionally, but especially for quarterbacks, especially because, well, now you have a little less money riding on them, right? So why not? Why not just let them sit, right? Why not let Lamar Jackson kind of soak it in and get used to the speed of the game at like a manageable level as opposed to throwing somebody out there to get destroyed immediately? By the way, quarterbacks who are apparently ready for that sometimes get put in situations that beat them up too early. Andrew Luck might be sitting on a career that's, several years shorter than it could have been because he was thrown in immediately in a situation where he took a beating. So it can work out a lot of different ways. I just don't see any real urgency here in terms of throwing a guy in anywhere. That's not team dependent. I mean, across the board, it seems like it should be a practice. Yeah, Robert Griffin's on line one on that one also. But in terms of guys who are not necessarily ready to play right away, but somebody's probably going to make them play right away. You mentioned the thing with Lamar Jackson, where, you've seen him do all these otherworldly things and you're amazed that people see him and don't see the possibility of otherworldly things. Josh Allen. It's wild because you and I watch a lot of college football. We talk to people about a lot of college football. I feel like we heard about Josh Allen from NFL guys, and that's weird. It's very weird. And it's also, I think there's a number of things at play. First of all, tell me the teams he might go to, right? In theory, he could go to the Browns, right? We could all be wrong, and Josh Allen could go to the Browns, right? Could be the Jets. Could be the Jets, right? That's also like an extremely bad situation for him. Where can he go where he's actually going to get the thing that I think everyone agrees he needs, which is developmental time, right? Where? Is that team anywhere? Quietly, it might have been the Giants, if for no other reason, and they are insisting upon keeping this Eli Manning thing going. Right. And that's the spot you want, right, in this draft as a quarterback. If I'm looking at it, and I have, because, all right, every quarterback's going to go, yeah, I can play immediately. You know what they're all saying backstage? Okay, I don't want to play immediately, right? Like if they're being very, very real and they're being very realistic about the bulk of quarterbacks who go into the draft, right? I want to go and be a backup behind somebody who knows what they're doing and gives me the time to breathe and look around and get a little stronger, a little better, a little faster, and a little smarter. That's what they all want. The Giants, for a quarterback, that's the catbird seat right here. You want that, right? Josh Allen, like a college guy, I watched him play, and the thought was, he has a huge arm, and he throws a great deep ball. And do you know how many guys with a huge arm and a great deep ball I've seen roll through college football and then fall off into the Grand Canyon of nothingness in the pros? A lot. Tons of them. Like, if that were the case, we'd be going, man, Rex Grossman's a Hall of Famer. He's a complete Hall of Famer, that Rex Grossman. He's astonishing. Now, I will say this, by the way. When we talk about success, Rex Grossman, Super Bowl quarterback. I didn't say Super Bowl winning. Super Bowl quarterback who still held down a spot long enough to get his pension. Well done, Rex. I would also say in college, Rex Grossman is Peyton Manning compared to Josh Allen, except that doesn't even feel fair because the gap between Rex Grossman and Peyton Manning as college quarterbacks is way smaller than the gap between Rex Grossman and Josh Allen as college quarterbacks. Yeah, like Josh Allen, it's so hard to get people to see this, right? Josh Allen, as our own Jason Kirk put in a piece on SBNation.com yesterday, he would have outsmarted math, right? Like statistically, outlier just barely begins to describe how far off he is from the general track of what defines success at the college level that projects to the next level, right? What he is in college gives very few indicators, like to the point of negligible, that he's going to be a success in the NFL. That's numbers. That's not me going, oh, those NFL scouts are wrong, right? No. I mean, I think he could have been a really good college quarterback.
in the right situation. He was at Wyoming. He wasn't surrounded by much talent. This year he looked worse because he lost all his receivers. But statistically, there's no case here. None, right? Like, we're all talking about how Moneyball has taken over the NBA and Major League Baseball and not the NFL. That hasn't happened yet in the NFL, because if it did at the talent evaluation level, we wouldn't be talking about Josh Allen right now.
Now, his highlights are incredible, but his lowlights are a blooper reel. Like, they are comically bad.
I mean, everyone, I don't know what the comparison they're making here. I think the one that people in your mentions, which God bless you for wading through your mentions, man, because that's something. But the people have said Favre, right?
No.
Like, oh, man, no. For a lot of reasons. Like, Josh Allen looks like Christian Hackenberg to me. He looks like somebody that they fell in love with the arm and with the potential, but they missed the fact that he overthrows guys in the flat by 4 yards. And I mean 4 yards over their head consistently.
What I also love, too, is the Wyoming coaches, because they need this to happen for their own good, and they are willing to throw everyone under the bus, including themselves, to try to make this Josh Allen thing seem like something other than it is.
Yeah, that's the pitch, right? That Wyoming is so desperate for this, and I don't blame them, right? At no point do I blame any of these humans for acting on these very human motivations, right? But Wyoming needs this to happen to the point where they'll go, I mean, there's only so much that we're capable of, right? And I don't mean that's on Josh. I mean, look at us. Come on. We were holding him down. This little town, Laramie can't hold the talents of Josh Allen, right? A light that bright, we gotta get it off this high prairie plain. Send it to New York, where it could play for the Jets.
Yes, because everybody knows that they're the place for you to work out all your kinks. By the way, are you surprised that agents don't tell players the second they get out of college, we're deleting your Twitter account and starting over? Because Josh Allen just got caught by the Wayback Machine.
It's sort of proof to me that again, college basketball is way further ahead in a lot of ways in terms of agents getting access to people, and that if we want amateurism to really die, that college basketball is where it's going to happen, because any agent would have gotten to Josh Allen sooner and gotten him to delete old tweets, which, I don't know, man, you're 14. You're just going to say some ignorant stuff. I don't mean like kind of wrong stuff. When you're 14, you're just going to say some stupid stuff. That's a hyphenated word, by the way, stupid. And you're going to say that kind of stuff, right? Unfortunately, for Josh Allen, he had a Twitter account, and he said some extremely stupid stuff. That's on your agent, man. That's on your agent, who's got to know that that's out there, right? Don't look through it. That's too labor intensive. Delete it. Just delete it and start over. Congratulations, Josh Allen. You were born at 22. Wow. Look, debuting on social media. Didn't you have one before? Nope. Never happened. Didn't exist. Bye.
See, I wind up torn on these things because I'm not big on this idea of jumping in and finding out what people said about stuff in high school. Like, I feel like the only reason that people go looking for those things is to start trouble. And so I'm uncomfortable with the idea of doing that. That being said, his explanation for it was, I've grown and I've learned, or something to that effect. And I'm like, well, what the hell did you learn at Wyoming?
What did you learn about diversity at Wyoming?
Yeah, like that's what I just want to know. So, like, when was it that you had this moment that you realized that saying these things was wrong? Because all guys ever have to say is, I've matured. No one ever comes with the follow-up question. Really, how? How'd you go about doing that?
Yeah. What did you learn about people at Wyoming, by the way? There's not that many people out there to learn from. Like, there's nobody in that state.
Nope.
Nobody. It's a place where you can still ride a horse to the stadium. You can. You can really ride your horse to the stadium and tie it up. That's an option, man. That's Powder River living, right? And you're certainly not going to learn a whole lot about diversity, right? That's not a slam on Wyoming. That's just stats. That's just facts, right?
Yep.
You're not encountering a lot of people who don't look like you, who aren't on the football team, right? And football's a great driver of diversity. You're only in football for what? A couple hours a day, maybe, if that, right? Depending on the season. The rest of the time, you're in Laramie, Wyoming, man, and you're not really getting out all that often.
Also, football's a driver of diversity, but not a driver of integration. Because how many times do you watch a football game and the quarterback throws a pass to the white receiver or the tight end, and then like, well, those two guys are roommates. I know this works this way because I root for Texas, and I went through the 9 years of Colt McCoy and Jordan Shipley.
Every time I heard Jordan Shipley, I heard somebody in the back in an aristocratic accent going, "Of the Houston Shipleys," if you're not familiar. Yeah, they're roommates. That's why I was always floored when at Florida. Like, you go, Tim Tebow's a little different, right? He actually, as he was roommates with Tony Joyner, right? A member of the Florida secondary who was not Caucasian, right? That was one of the few times I was like, oh, okay, this might be a slightly different setup than I think it is in terms of where Tim Tebow lives in the world, right?
I also think he was roommates with Cam Newton at one point.
Yeah, which...
Bad idea.
Man, to spend that Friday night, right? What are the two of you going to talk about? Well, I'm pretty sure you both love Jesus. And after that, So it's some skint. That's some skint conversation that probably just led to, why don't we play PlayStation? Yeah, let's just play some PlayStation.
Yeah, and let's not talk about football, because one of us is going to get upset at the fact that I'm way better than the other one. While we're still here talking about the quarterbacks and Josh Allen, did you know that he called Stephen A. Smith in the middle of the night last night?
I do not.
Yes, he called Stephen A. Smith, and he was incredibly apologetic. And I want to know how that plan kicked into action. Right? Like, when this happened, when they're like, oh, what do you got to do? What are we going to do? What are we going to do? And I think Josh Allen's agent is Tom Condon of CAA. And Tom Condon pops up and is like, I know what to do. Get Stephen A. on the phone. And so he says he calls Stephen A. in the middle of the night. Stephen A. got to be at work mad early. Do you think that he woke Stephen A. Smith up out of sleep? He's like, Stephen A., this is Josh Allen. Who? I don't know no Josh Allen. Josh Allen, Wyoming quarterback. Oh, yeah. What's going on?
I want to know, first of all, is that a Wyoming area code, right? Because, if it comes up on your phone, usually you recognize the area code. But if it's middle of the night and I don't see it, right, and I'm pretty sure that it's not somebody calling me to tell me that somebody I was related to died, because when you get called in the middle of the night, right?
Yes.
Like, one or two things has happened, and none of them are real good, right? And none of them are, a quarterback from Wyoming is calling me to discuss my comments that I made when I was 14. Right? However, I will say this. If you're going to call anybody who you want to talk about your maturity and about how you feel real sorry about things, and you want them to speak as declaratively and loudly as possible, they called the right man.
Yes, they did.
I think that was it. They're like, call somebody who is as emphatic as possible. Like Stephen A. Smith, call him.
By the way, Wyoming has one area code. In case you were curious, it has all of one area code. I feel like we got to all the. Like, I feel like there's one of the. Oh, Josh Rosen. We didn't even get to Josh Rosen. That is. I team Josh Rosen in every way at this point. I want him to do well so badly. I don't know if it will happen, but I'm here for it.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way. Like, Josh Rosen is so well suited in life that in 10 years we could be like, hey, you know who Southern California's like rising new power in real estate is? It's Josh Rosen. We'd be like, that's great. That's phenomenal. Didn't he play in the NFL for a couple of years? Yeah, man, I don't know. But, he was good with his money and he invested well. And I don't know, I'm buying a condo from him now. It's working out, man. Like, Josh Rosen's going to be cool no matter what. So he's probably the ultimate success story in this draft that you go, hey, man, like he could go to a good team or a bad team and it'll still work out for him, man. Like, that says more about society than it does the NFL, right? Because it's just, where Josh Rosen was born and where he's at and who his parents are. But I hope he's really successful because I like him a lot because he's conscientious. He's insanely talented as an athlete. Like, if you watched him at UCLA, and people don't really realize this when they look at his stats and everything, they switched it up on him a couple times, right? Like, they changed the offense. They changed coordinators. I believe he had 3 coordinators in 3 years at one point at UCLA. They changed a lot in terms of what he did. And, like, can you name a receiver that Josh Rosen was throwing to, right? Like, we can go through these guys and go, well, I don't know, he's got a receiver. And
Lamar Jackson's the guy that's over there. Like, I don't even know them cats' names, bro.
Yeah, no. And if you look at the number, this is another thing while we're putting things in context. Go look at the number of drops that Louisville's receivers had over the last 2 years for Lamar Jackson. It's an obscene number of drops. He had a lot. His completion percentage should probably be at least 3 points higher just based on all of the drops that those receivers had. So I said there were 2. There's more than that in this draft where you go, when I put them in context, their numbers actually look better because Rosen was productive no matter what happened, even when he was getting destroyed behind an offensive line that could not pass block, they were turnstiles his sophomore year, and he was still pretty productive until he finally succumbed to injury.
By the way, on Josh Rosen had a hot tub put into his room as a college freshman, and all I hear when I see that is, Leadership.
I mean, come on. Like, is that your quarterback, right? This is the Terrell Owens question. Is that your quarterback? My quarterback has a hot tub. Now, take Oklahoma, by the way. Like, think about it the other way. Like, is that my quarterback? I don't know. I got this guy who's listed at 6'1", who's probably like 5'11", out there wanting to fight the other bench. Yeah, I'm going to get behind that. There are a lot of those dudes here. None of them had a hot tub in their room. None of them.
Now, the green room always fascinates me with the NFL draft because why go? Every time a guy goes, I always look at it and I'm like, all you're getting out of this is the chance to meet Roger Goodell. Who wants that?
You know, there's also this, right? Before we get to the issue of Goodell, and I know we want to talk about Goodell and the greeting, right?
Yes.
And about his technique. But aside from that, people are really sleeping on the potential for sponsorships, right? If I know that I am going to be drafted later, but it's still going to happen, right? 3rd round, 4th round, wherever. If somebody's going to have a huge fall, I don't know who that would be in this draft, right? Somebody who might slide all the way down the draft rankings. You got anybody in mind before we go down this experiment?
Perhaps Lamar Jackson.
Okay, so let's take Lamar Jackson. If you know that you're like, it might be late 2nd, 3rd round, the camera's going to be on me, right? Well, let's beat him to the punch. Let's prepare, right?
Yes.
You played Uno? Everyone loves the game Uno, okay? It sometimes gets people assaulted. It sometimes gets people shot. It sometimes tears up families. But everyone loves Uno, all right? Even on the way to the hospital after you have the fight that the Uno match got you into. So why don't you just call up Uno and you'll be like, hey, listen, I might be around for a minute. I'm going to need to pass the time. I don't want to be caught looking on my phone like a loser. I don't want to be caught in a terrible fitting suit like Brady Quinn was when he was in the NFL draft and he had the 18-button suit and those big blocky shoulders, so he just looked like a refrigerator, big sad refrigerator sitting there waiting to get drafted. No, I'm going to call Uno and I'll be like, I'm going to play with either my mom or somebody watching, and that is an instant endorsement. So, peel me in on that.
I also get the feeling the Uno games at the Jackson house might get intense.
Oh, yeah. Why don't we build in a third, right? Let's just say, hey, I don't know, Roquan Smith, fine player, probably going to get drafted, but I don't know, I'm pulling him randomly, right? Roquan has to sit there for a minute, right?
Yes.
And Roquan, we'll just deal you in here, right? Oh, look, I just got to draw 4. Man, this Uno game is exciting. What a fun game for the entire family, right? And if somebody else is waiting, just deal them in. I'm just telling you, make some money while you're waiting, right? Hustle never sleeps. Sell the sponsorship for what you're doing in the green room if you know it's going to be a second.
Well, I think of 3 guys who did it right by not going to the NFL draft. Joe Thomas, who went out fishing with his dad, because I don't see the point of just sitting around waiting on the damn phone to ring. That just seems like it would be taxing and unnecessary, right? So there's that one. He and his dad just went out fishing. There's Jameis Winston, who for a number of reasons probably didn't need to be hanging around the draft that year. And they had a fish fry, and I'm pretty sure they weren't frying no fish in the green room, so that means that he was winning in that regard.
Joe Thomas, by the way, all-time Wisconsinite for that, right?
Yes.
Where were you? I was fishing, When you say fishing, there's a 12-pack with you and Dad.
Yes.
Okay? It's a responsible 12-pack because, 1, it's a boat, and 2, you're splitting it, and 6 beers in Wisconsin won't get anyone drunk.
No.
You can quote me on that. It's not getting anyone in the entire state buzzed, right? That's just hydration. I don't know. You get to meet Roger Goodell, and Goodell, I think over the years, gotten much better at not only the greeting, but also the dap and the hug. It's no longer awkward. He's now just substituted violence with it.
Yes.
Right? If you watch, it's Goodell's not a little guy.
I was just about to mention that he is not a small man.
I mean, particularly against those linemen. I mean, he's not holding his own, but he's still pretty big in comparison.
Right. He's not Chris Berman, who is as big as everybody that he talked to. But it is one of those where it's he's in the same vicinity.
No, I mean, I will say, the man took middle age, and he did what I did, which is he goes, you know what? If it's going to get bigger, it's going to at least be in a certain shape, right? So he there's some power cleans in there. He's definitely got a little bit of there's some volume in his workout, is what I'm saying, right? He's not Ed Hockley, but he definitely took it and put it on his shoulders and on his lats because he's a fairly big dude who I imagine is bench pressing his body weight. I'm just going to put that out there. Roger Goodell can at least, at his age, bench his body weight, which is a substantial benchmark. Congratulations, Roger. That's impressive.
So do you think he practices the dap because he has gotten very good at the dap. And I'm wondering at what point he realized that, like, this was his entree into cool. Is that, okay, if I can get this dap thing right when these guys come up on the stage, then maybe I can be somebody. Because, hey, man, some of those cats hit him with, like, some intricate dap. Yeah.
Now, I will tell you, if you're not familiar with the dap for white boys, okay, we'll give you the cheat sheet on dap for white boys. All right. If you can alternate the handshake, the typical handshake to hand clasp where the thumbs are linked, right? And then bring it in for the hug, right? The side hug, right? Check to see which way the head is going. It can vary. Okay. So follow your partner, right? Check that. That's your minimum. That's the base, right? And Goodell, to be fair, Goodell had that down like maybe 10 years ago. Easily. Okay.
Yes.
He's practiced. There's no way he has not practiced. Okay. One, he is a football person. What makes you think there weren't meetings and plans and schematics about this, right? There's always a plan. Go to Hunt for Red October, Fred Thompson, when he talks about rookies, they don't take a dump without a plan. Okay. Same thing for football people, right? They're Russian sub-commanders. They always have a plan. Two, I think he actually, if I had to guess, has gone up to each of them and gone, okay, we're doing this. Okay, we're doing that. Right?
Yes.
Cool. And who's going to say no to that, right? Like when you're rolling up first in your first NFL draft as a rookie and you've just become rich, and one of the guys who's one of the kind of like pipeline managers for this whole thing, the manager himself is like, hey, we're going to do the shake to the clasp to the snap, and then we're going to go to the hug. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm going to say yes most of the time, right? I'm going to let him have that.
The snap is crucial. I think a couple things happened. I think, one, Roger Goodell realized, like, this thing that happens with people with dogs, they didn't understand why people were so wild about their dogs, but that's the only person that's ever happy to see most people, right? Like, I think Roger Goodell figured out this is the only time that people are actually happy to see me when I show up. I also imagine there's somebody in the NFL office whose job it is to practice dap with Roger Goodell, and Roger Goodell is on him like, I need perfection, right? Like you have to learn, someone else has to learn all this dap too. So who's that guy in the office? Is he getting somebody that's also on a similar level tier and perhaps of a similar complexion? Or is there like Boney T from the mailroom who's like, yeah, the commissioner wants to see you. Really? What for? Hey, Boney T, need some help with something.
I am betting it's one of those people I'm betting it's one of those like players who works for the league is my guess, right? It's a bridge person.
Like Troy Vincent?
Yeah. It's like Troy Vincent. That's who does it, right? Because like the power dynamic of going to the mailroom, I think even Roger goes, that might be problematic, right? But if Troy's sitting there, I feel like he might have the kind of like, okay, listen, I'm going to be greeting African-American athletes on stage. I need to properly execute this thing you call dap, and we will work on it until I appear fluid, comfortable, and professional in my dap. So, there's one, no doubt he works on it. Two, no doubt that it's paid off. It's fluid. If you watch it, I will state this. I don't really envy Roger Goodell on most things. I kind of envy his command of the dap. It's pretty effortless at this point, right, and coordinated.
I also think Merton Hanks, now that I think about it, he had the neck dance. That would probably be the first guy you'd call in the NFL office, teach you how to get your dap on.
Oh, yeah. It's also like I just figured that anybody named Merton is somebody you call for competence.
Yes.
I do. Because you're named Merton. People would be like, Merton? Is that the guy you want to call for this? Yeah. That name made him extremely competent, right? Because he's like, I got to be good at things. My mom named me Merton. I have to excel. I'm going to go back and see who Goodell, who hits him with the Wakanda Forever.
Yes.
Right? To see if, like who's our comic book person? Who's the geek who's going to roll out there, right? Because it's hard to spot geeks when they're 250, 300 pounds. But sometimes you talk to these kids and they're like, and they're 18 and they're rolling in. They're like, oh, yeah, man, I read that whole series. Like, I'm a massive comic book geek. And you're like, cool. 270-pound comic book geek. I'm going to be real respectful about your opinions on Infinity War, right? But somebody's going to hit him with the Wakanda Forever.
I don't even think it's a comic book geek, to be honest. It's going to be somebody sitting at the house right now like, watch what I'm going to do. You're going to see. Watch. And then he's going to do it, and there's going to be some guy who hadn't got picked yet that was like, damn, I was going to do that.
Yeah. And by the way, I have no doubt that if Goodell gets hit with it, he goes right arm over left. It's not left arm over right. It's right arm over left. And you know what? Like 200 people are going to notice that and be like, damn. He even got that right. How?
Yes.
How?
Here for it. Absolutely. I'm trying to think anything else like green room. Because like Geno Smith, I think he had the miserable green room experience because he was so sure he was going to be drafted and be vindicated. And then EJ Manuel got drafted ahead of him, which, I mean, we have to admit, pretty insulting. Right? Like,
can I go back to my previous rule? Jimbo Fisher gets him paid.
That's right. I think Christian Ponder is the best example of Jimbo Fisher gets him paid because at least EJ Manuel looks the part. I don't know what Christian Ponder did.
No, Christian Ponder, you know what Christian Ponder got? Great agent, the right college football coach, right? Excellent interview, and that's fine. You can't be mad at him for that. Not one bit. The thing I remember at one point, I don't remember the lineman, but Nick Saban was sitting there, right? And in case you doubt that Alabama ever stops recruiting for a single second and that the entire state is not devoted to the success of that program, Nick Saban is always at the NFL draft, just hanging out, right? So that if you're a recruit watching, look, hey, where's Nick? Oh, look, there's Nick.
Yep.
He just happens to be at the NFL draft, and oh, look, his players are getting drafted. Now, he's surely there for the warm relationship that he has with his former players. Right?
And you know what he's going to do that night at the after-draft party? The electric slide. That's what Nick Saban is going to do because Nick Saban knows all of them. The electric slide, the Harlem Shuffle, the bus stop. He got them all.
Oh, all of them, right? You forget that he's a former defensive back.
That is true.
Right? And then you see him do the electric slide, or I believe the one that I've watched most is him doing the Cupid Shuffle.
Yes.
Because you really get a chance. You can really get a chance to both follow directions and shift the hips down, right? Dude can move. Can flat out move. He's got hips that could turn in coverage, okay? Like, don't and remember, what was the thing in The Blind Side that the mother, Leanne Tui, said about Nick Saban? Like, that man's got something. That man, don't. Speaking of moms in the green room, don't leave Nick Saban around your mom. In theory, as a married man, don't leave him around mom. Because you know what mom's going to do? Mom's going to leave that room going, there's something about that little man. No, he's got an Armani suit, and then I saw him doing the electric slide, and it's going to take a couple of days to get that out of my head. Yeah, no, he's smooth. He's got moves all over the place, right? But I remember he was in the green room, and I can't remember which lineman was drafted, but he actually looked surprised when one of his linemen was drafted in the first round, right? Which is where you remember that Nick Saban is a recruiter and a PR guy who will do everything that he will do to get you in the NFL draft, right? And to make sure that everyone watching knows that. But I can't remember which lineman it was, but he got drafted, and Nick was like, "What?
Oh, was it Carpenter? Was that year that Seattle took Carpenter?
Yeah. It was Carpenter, which Seattle offensive line pick went wrong. Or was surprising. That's a pattern. But yeah, like he was surprised. And for a second, like you remember, Nick Saban also evaluates talent, right? And if you ask him, he will tell you exactly what is wrong with every single one of his recruits, right? If you're in the room, right? He'd go, okay, well, here's the thing that's wrong with them. And for a second, you kind of saw that slip, and he was like, James? That was my favorite moment because that's hilarious on like 8 different levels.
That had to be on Jimbo Fisher film when Christian Ponder went number 12. He's like, wait, what? Or EJ, like, wait a minute, really? Them too?
Another thing too that like when you're surprised that somebody's drafted ahead of you, I like the guys, and it is very like I think this is the process is like deeply cynical, and I think that the NFL has a lot of serious failings. I don't really get tired of seeing guys just sort of get overcome in the moment, right? Like Morris Claiborne. Like I don't like guys who are just like, okay, I got drafted and finally like I have $1. Like I have some money. That's the thing I don't really get tired of, right? Even though I'm like, it's going to be a real ugly, painful process playing in the NFL for you, right? I would fix 1,000 things about this if I could. I still kind of like to see him lose it, especially if mom's there. I'm weak for that.
Before we let you go, we've been rolling a while. It's been pretty entertaining here. You see that New York Times story with the tape of the meeting that the owners had with the players about the kneeling and the protests and everything else. And I just want to say off the top, if I had one conclusion that I came away from that story with, you know what that conclusion is? Eric Reed is never playing another game of NFL football. Eric Reed showed up in there in the button-up shirt and the tie with the Kaepernick T-shirt over the top of it. You're done in this town, brother.
Not only did he show up with the jersey over the tie, right? Go back to the intro in what might be my favorite lead of any story. Because journalism is always about writing the extremely funny, pointed thing in a subtle way, right? Which is this, that they go through the lead and explain everything, and I'm reading straight from it, right? In the spirit of partnership at the meeting, the owners decided that they and the players should sit in alternating seats around the large table, which featured NFL logo in the middle. This is me, like a situation of trust and confidentiality, right? Quote, let's make sure we keep this confidential, unquote, Commissioner Roger Goodell said to begin the session. Let me remind you, I'm reading this out of the New York Times, right? So the first thing Roger Goodell asked for was trust and to keep it confidential. I'm reading it out loud to you right now. How do you think that went?
Yeah.
How'd that go for you, Roger?
And the Times got a tape. It's not like somebody just came and relayed the information. Someone gave them a tape.
A whole tape. It's like a 3-hour meeting. And somebody goes, yeah, I had my iPhone on the whole time.
The whole time.
I really hope it was Jerry Jones.
Well, I don't think they let Jerry come to that meeting because I think one of the things about that meeting that is underrated is they had to come up with a delicate balance, I feel like, in the NFL in the sense that, okay, we couldn't have like a table full of hawks on this one. That wasn't it. We need some guys that are halfway understanding that the players might trust. That's how Stephen Ross gets there, right? Because he's always down with this sort of stuff. So, okay, cool. Let's go ahead and do that. But then you do have to have some hawks because the hawks want to make sure that you don't give away the farm. That's how Bob McNair winds up there. So when they start doing this thing with alternating seats, how many people are trying to get out of the seat next to Bob McNair?
Yeah, no, by all means, you first, sir. Please. I like my door. I like my back facing the door. I don't know. Just how I live. Bob's a little too close to it. Yeah, you know who else was at that meeting? That might I know it was probably a player who recorded it. Like before we get too far down this conceit, it's probably a player that recorded it, right?
Certainly.
Or somebody else in the room who's a plant, right? But for humor's sake, if I had to go, there's a guy who might have the exact right moment to put a knife in Goodell's back. Bob Kraft is right there.
Yes, he is.
Like, he's right there in the room.
Yo, can we talk about Bob Kraft, the ultimate line straddler? Bob Kraft is down with Donald Trump and with Meek Mill and somehow has pulled this off without getting any hell from both sides on this. You know how much Jeff Sessions had to be furious seeing Bob Kraft kicking it with Meek Mill?
I mean, does that tell you how important Jeff Sessions is at this point in American history?
Yes, it does.
So, yeah, you know what? Oh, you're mad. Stay mad. That's fine. I think the connection was actually Michael Rubin, right?
Yes.
Who is friends with both Bob Kraft and Meek Mill, right? Like, I love situations like this where you go, hey, that's how this one guy should have acted or where he should have been in this case. And he definitely wasn't in this point, right? Like, people are visual learners. Somebody, Rubin went to him and was like, yeah, this sucks. This rapper's in jail for no reason, And all of a sudden, Bob Kraft, I don't know, maybe his tennis lesson was canceled, right? Maybe he just had a little spare time in the day. He was like, you know what I'm going to do today? I'm going to go get Meek Mill from jail. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do.
But don't forget, man, Kraft be stomping in his Air Force One, showing up at the brunch. He showed up at the Rock Nation brunch in his Air Force Ones.
Which, hospitality is a great universal, right? Because, I don't know, what if you're just sitting at home and Bob Kraft shows up at your door and is like, hey, can you make me some eggs, right? I'm probably going to make Bob Kraft eggs, right?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well.
Let me tell you something about the Rock Nation brunch, though. Let me tell you what Jay-Z ain't turning away ever. No rich white man. Ain't no rich white man in the world showing up. And Jay-Z's going to be like, nah, we don't have no room. No. Jay-Z's like, another rich white man for me to meet. Come on in here, buddy.
Well, he's slowly graduating into the I really shouldn't be on stage anymore part of his career.
Yes.
Right? Because I'm beginning to look mature, right? As he did at Coachella. Jay would rather be home.
Yes.
I think.
Yes, but someone would rather him be in her sight.
Yeah. Why don't you come to California with me? Do a verse. It'll be fun.
They're doing a whole tour. Why? Because you can't leave him at home.
Is it going to be like you see Willie Nelson play now? He has a timer on stage. and it's like it says 60 minutes, right? Because Willie's old, and you can see it when you see him. It's like, okay, we're at 45. That clock only goes up to 60, and when it hits 60, Jay's like, "The Rock is forever. Good night." Immediately goes directly into the recliner, right? Like the Barry Bonds recliner. Yes. Remember how Barry Bonds, in like the last 2 or 3 years of his career, just had his own chair in the locker room that he would nap in? Yes. That's what Jay's got. He immediately falls into that and falls asleep.
Well, here's my thing also about the league meeting and everything that went along with it. The owners are trying to play this really delicate game. They want to get these guys to stop kneeling and doing this protest. And by the way, I'm not that opposed to the owner's stance on this. The idea that this isn't helping anymore and it's just getting us in trouble with Trump and then Trump makes everything bad. I get where they're coming from, but it's hard to sell it if you don't care. And there's no reason to believe that they actually care about the underlying issue. So they're trying to figure out how to get these guys to stop doing this while not actually looking like they care. Because, they always talk about they care about their players and what their players are in. But they don't want anybody out here thinking they actually cared about the issue itself. No. They got to go back to their parties after that.
Yeah, no, I don't think they care. This is strictly, although I will say this, like they might care, but they're also limited by their wealth, right? Like you don't understand that the rich have certain limitations, right? They have certain limitations. And one of those is that they can't really move against their bank accounts, right? Which are very, very large and push back very, very hard and often have a lot of partners, right?
Right.
But as long as they don't really care about the issue, for the moment they're stuck, which is kind of where I go, I think a person might go, well, why don't they just do it anyway? You go, well, why don't you wait? Some of this might fix itself, right?
Right.
It really might. Like if you've got a problem that's in the White House, that can change. That can change real fast, right? And I think there's a number of people for whom, laziness and disconnect will probably do the work that, careful thought couldn't do. That's my guess here, is that, not to use the football metaphor too intentionally, but, punting on this and trying to look moderate, I don't know, it might work. Right? That wouldn't be my personal approach, but I can also go, yeah, I could see how that could work for some of them.
Well, these guys are scared to death of Trump. And part of what was funny about that meeting also is all these guys who gave Trump money are now afraid of him. I'm like, whoa, buddy, I thought this went the other way. Like, I thought the whole reason you gave him money is so he would be afraid of you.
Yeah. No. And there's people in that room who wrote him $1 million checks, right?
Yes.
There's a guy born in Pakistan who wrote him checks, who is sitting at that table in that room. So, when you think, okay, well, here's, this seems like a really simple issue, and the politics seem really simple. No, they're all tied up, not just in 1,000 ways in terms of being NFL owners. They're tied up in terms of being businessmen in a lot of different ways. So it gets complex and squirrely real fast.
How about this? How crazy would it be if some dude got drafted and then immediately kneeled?
I'm trying to think of who might do that.
Lamar Jackson!
Josh Allen. Josh Allen just rolls out there and immediately kneels. He goes way too far. Like, you saw those tweets? I'm going way the other way.
I tell you this, though. Tell me Josh Rosen wouldn't do that. That has not crossed Josh Rosen's mind. Josh Rosen has considered breaking out this dashiki that he got to go see Black Panther for this evening.
Yeah, God, I'm trying to picture that. Oh God, it's kind of burning my eyes, but it kind of works because he's Josh Rosen, right?
Yes.
Like he could do it. I just see it what you would say? Exactly what anything else with Josh Rosen. You go, that's great, man. Life's just working out for him. Look at that. Good looking man wearing a daishiki. It's great.
We need this. All right. This is my man, Spencer Hall. Check him out. EDSBS.com. Also SBNation.com. You doing any fun, ridiculous, adventurous stories coming up soon? Because you always tend to find a way to go to countries I've never heard of to do things I never do.
Well, I got back from New Zealand and did a whole thing on Edmund Hillary, which was really fun. You should know this about New Zealand, by the way. The greatest athlete in the world, if you watch New Zealand news, tonight, LeBron James, had 78 points and 23 rebounds and, 33 assists, and that's fine. Steven Adams, though, for the Oklahoma City Thunder, in a 20-point loss, had 11 valiant points and 8 assists. That's where they would go with it every time. They'd be like, the NBA is all about how Steven Adams did that day, which after a week of that, I was like, I don't think they're wrong. I think Steven Adams is the most important athlete in the world.
All right, my man. I appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening to The Right Time. We do this thing twice a week. Thursdays, we do interviews. Tuesdays, we just talk about what's going on with the world. Remember to rate and review us at the Apple Store. Also on the ESPN app, you can find us anywhere you got podcasts. Go ahead and check us out. And we will talk to you guys again next week. Take it easy.
Thanks for checking out The Right Time with Bomani Jones podcast.
You can listen or subscribe on the ESPN app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts.
The Right Time
with Bomani Jones.